Hello, everyone. I'm so excited to share with you Claire from Ambassador Yoga. Claire and I met a few years ago now at the National Kids Yoga Conference, and we have this bond because we both are from Canada, me originally, and Claire is still there now. But also, she's doing some really excellent work within the tweens and teen yoga space. And now that my daughter is that age, she was much younger when we first met, but I'm really curious about, this idea of how do we best alter the practices for this tween and teen age, which is so different from children's yoga and adult yoga. So thanks so much for being here, Claire. To get started, let's hear from you, your background, what sort of your passion, your work to get people up to speed with who you are.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me. I first discovered yoga in my early 20s, and it gave me immediate relief from chronic neck pain that I had been struggling with for a few years. Doctors and physiotherapists couldn't figure it out. So I was hooked on yoga for the physical relief and ailments and benefits at that point in time. As I continued my studies, I got a little bit deeper and eventually became a teacher and now a teacher trainer. So the philosophies really had an impact on my life as well. With that being said, we created a 200-hour yoga teacher training program, but at our studio, people were really asking for they were actually asking for girl empowerment, teen
Mm,
empowerment workshops and classes, which I was open to. And this was back in 2014 when we weren't as aware as we are now of gender roles. So I was already a little bit hesitant to do sort of girl empowerment. And my initial reaction was, well, what if we taught other people to be less forceful so the girls don't need to be empowered? Is there a way to blend that?
mm.
And essentially that evolved into our teen and tween yoga program for people that are between the ages of 10 and 15. It seems to work best for.
Right. And I love that because what you're talking about, Claire, is so common for those of us, right? You come in with a physical ailment, maybe, or you come in for one reason, but what you get out of it is more the mental impact. And I think that that's something you could really share with the tweens and the teens, right? Is how do they come into their bodies? What's that self-awareness, right? And so from your experience, what did you see were those benefits of working specifically with that population, that age group?
Well, one of the first things that I noticed when we started getting asked for teen yoga was that drop-in classes structured like a adult drop-in class was not working. People were not committed, and the teens really weren't getting the benefit. They, in my opinion, didn't have the body awareness or the coordination or the confidence to participate fully in the class. They
Mm,
also didn't have the awareness to not participate if things were hurting, or we would go too far in postures and things like that. So I did realize early on that the drop-in structure wasn't going to work and asana alone wasn't going to work.
interesting.
So what ended up working really well was we actually took our 200-hour teacher training program and thinned it out to make it accessible for the teens. So our teen program is actually structured like a 200-hour program in the sense that they learn all 8 limbs of yoga, including the philosophies, including the breathing techniques, the mudras, the mantras. And I have found that they have really, really benefited from that. In addition to that, I will say that one of the most important elements that I've seen and sort of witnessed is the reflection time and
Mm,
the story time. We hear from kids all the time that whether they're at school or at sports or even any other activities that they're doing, they just never have enough time to complete
mm,
anything. Everything is rushed and we structure
right,
things that way.
right.
So giving them an opportunity to sit and reflect and pause and then share is really important. Some of them share more than others, some of them just listen, but they all gain from having that connection, understanding that they're all going through the same thing. And the philosophies really help help them realize or sort of be able to express what it was that they were feeling, that they knew they were feeling it, but they weren't quite sure how to express it. And I just find that the philosophies of yoga, even though they're so ancient, they do apply today. And the teens really love trying to figure out how they can take those philosophies and apply them to today's issues and struggles, and triumphs as well.
That's incredible. That's so incredible because I think about the yamas and yamas as something that, as yoga practitioners, is something we think about all the time. But it must have been extraordinary for you to watch the teens and tweens engage with this ancient wisdom, right, in insightful ways, and they probably sort of got it maybe quicker and in a different way than we do. We sort of think of it like you have to be a scholar of the Yoga Sutras, right? And you have to be reading, and there's all this like I should do's, right? And whereas presenting to tween and teens, they might be like, yeah, I got this, right? That they
They
see it
got it,
so
and then they teach other people. I've had a lot of
right.
parents come to me and say, "Oh," um, for example, one parent came to me and said that they learned about pratyahara because they were driving their teen somewhere and somebody was trying to rush them in traffic, and the teen said, they're in a rush. You're not. You don't have to respond to their honking and their aggressive sort of driving behind you. And the mom was like, okay, there's a name for that. There's a response for that.
Oh my gosh.
And so it's really great to see them teach other people.
That's so
And yes, they
amazing.
do. They get it. They don't have I don't know what it is, that
Like,
restriction that we have and think, I
yeah,
understand it, but I really need to dig, 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 dig. You're right.
yeah,
They're kind of
right,
like, oh, you plant the seed and they
right.
got it and they go with it, which is great.
Right. And it's another beautiful way of like kind of helping them peel the onion because what you're helping them with the self-awareness. Because as you say, right, these days we're all on this sort of hamster wheel, right? It's like go, 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 the classroom. Like we have so much curriculum to get through. We have so many demands as teachers and as admin, right, to get it all done in the classroom that we're missing that piece of the fun and the reflection of really having these children get to know themselves on a deeper level, right? Life was so much simpler and easier when we were growing up that, I see my child, she just kind of runs through life and it's sort of either full on at school or in her swimming, or it's like she's couch surfs, she's that kind of child that, it's like one or the other, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
I
that's
love
and
that.
that's what yoga teaches us as well, is that to go, 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 it's required sometimes, but to crash on the couch is not always the answer. Yes, you're resting, but it's not mindful resting. And we're not in this
Yes.
sort of aware space when we do that. We're just literally
Right.
crashing.
Oh, I
So
love
trying to
that.
give them permission, right? First of all, acknowledging that you have permission to rest, and then the self awareness of when they need it.
Right.
And I will say one of their favorite elements of yoga is the restorative. If I pulled out the bolsters and
Mhm.
blankets every class, they would not
Yes.
complain.
Right. Right. I love that distinction of the mindful resting too. So be able to find a way to rest and reboot in a healthy way, right? And not just sort of stuck on your screen and whatever. So what we hear from our community, Claire, is there's teens are like I said, a different population, and not all yoga teachers or our folks are familiar or understand the developmental difference of that age group, but they're put in a position where they're teaching preschoolers all the way up to teens, right? Or if you're a school counselor, what does that look like? Or a pediatric therapist, how do you work with a range of ages? And so they say with teens, they're stuck on, like you said, I mean, do we do the physical postures? What does that look like? So how do you get buy-in? So what would you say sort of are your top tips? Because a teen class could go terribly wrong, right? Or it can be really successful. So what are your sort of top tips of how to make it work for that age group?
A couple of things for sure. Definitely structure it different than an adult class and also a children's class. The games
Mm,
and the stories and the songs that work so well and so beautifully with children, the teens do outgrow, and it starts to feel a little bit juvenile, and then they start to sometimes feel a little disrespected sometimes, and then they
that's
don't fully engage in class. However, expecting them to walk in and do a full asana class when they're not taught the techniques,
mm,
or the purpose, the meaning behind the movements, or how to coordinate their breath with their movements becomes challenging for them as well. So I would say definitely finding that space in between, which is where we we just got very lucky in figuring it out early on that typically the structure for our classes, when they arrive, they come in and they reflect on their week, and they have reflection pages to complete. And if they want to grab bolsters and blankets to do that, they can do that. And if they want to do that sitting quietly, or if they want to do that, journaling, if they want to do that with crayons and in images, it doesn't have to be words, they can reflect however they like. And then we do have a structure where we're either teaching them some of the techniques. So we might be teaching a posture or two, the techniques, the benefits, the reasons. Could be a breathing technique, could be a mantra, could be a mudra, could be a philosophy, piece of, like a yama or one of the limbs of yoga. And then once they have all of those parts, then we try to put it together into a class. So your class might only be 30 or 40 minutes, your actual yoga class. But we complete that, and then they have time for resting, reflecting again. And then we always close by storytelling. How was your experiencing? What came up for you? What didn't? And that transition piece, instead of just finishing and out the door and you're on to your next activity. So that's the way that we structure it. We found it worked really well. And it also gave me an opportunity to be not a parent to the teens, not a teacher to the teens, almost like their favorite aunt, where they could, you become an adult in their life that cares about them and that really gets to know them, but is not going to discipline you necessarily. And I always say, if anything is, out of bounds or a safety issue, I am going to tell your parents. But if we can kind of keep it between us and they feel safe to share or express how they're feeling, you get to become that person for them. And of course, you have to set your boundaries with your teens, and everybody would be a little different depending on your background as well. I'm not qualified as a psychologist or a therapist or anything like that, but you can be the person that listens, and you have a unique role in their life, which is fun. I enjoyed it.
Yes. I love the storytelling piece because I do think that our children, now my daughter's in seventh grade, right? It's so fast and they just go subject to subject. And yes, I think for these children, they still need to be seen and heard and understood and really valued for them. It helps them develop their unique voice. So I love that you're offering that, not just reflection, but able to communicate that stories, who they are. I love that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And honestly, some teens were very, very comfortable. They'll share every class, and they'll share quite a bit, and others just sit and listen. But the impact is there as well. You can see their wheels spinning. Think, oh, the more vocal people actually still feel the way that I feel, even though I'm quieter or more introverted. We're going through the same things essentially in different ways, having similar experiences, which is nice.
Right. Excellent. So the first thing you're talking about is the structure, be able to structure it specifically for that age group. Do you have any other tips that would help us put together a teen yoga class?
So the other thing I would say is that for me, the drop-in classes didn't work. They were non-committal. So once we put it together as a full, complete program, it did become a series. Essentially, each level or each limb of yoga became a level in the program, and each level was 10 weeks. In my case, we just found that timing worked really well. So we would take 10 full weeks to explore level 1 of the program, which is the first limb of yoga, and a couple of postures and basic breathing, mudra, mantra. And then the teens, they had the opportunity to come back for level 2 and 3 and carry on. Not all of them did, but it was very much like lifeguarding. You mentioned swimming lessons.
Right.
You go through, you complete one level, and then it's just almost very natural that you would go to the next level. At the time when we were developing this, my kids were in karate, and they didn't love going to karate classes, but they really loved getting that stripe on their belt when they had completed a task and they were able to move on to the next level. And that worked really, really well as a business strategy. It was reliable income. We knew that we would probably, every time we opened up registration for another level, we would probably get the same kids. Sometimes they would bring friends, give or take, some would come and some would go. But for the most part, the core group would continue. But I think it also really worked well for the teens because we were noticing that they were really losing their practice due to being overscheduled. This is a time where
Mm.
they're getting relationships. This is a time where they're getting part-time jobs. And yoga just fell by the wayside. But if they knew that they were working towards something, they would make it a priority to continue to show
Right.
up. So structuring that way from the business side of it worked really, really well.
Right. I love that. Yeah, that totally makes sense. Yeah, and also I imagine the community you've created too within that space, right? The children all, the teens all get to know each other as
Yeah,
well. So there's a lot of benefit that way.
they
Yeah,
do. And
that's
then we
great.
also did have children's yoga at our studio as well. So because it was a teen and leadership program, we gave the teens leadership opportunities, which would be help out with the younger classes, or if somebody from the younger class wanted to have a yoga birthday party at the studio, the teens could come and be a part of that, and they could, help assist with that. So we're not doing it on our own.
Oh, I love it.
Yeah, it's really nice
Yeah, in terms
opportunities.
of power. Yeah, having that multi-age, I love it.
Or,
Excellent.
we would run yoga camps, and a week of yoga camp with little ones is really, really fun, but exhausting. So we'd have teens there to guide
Yes.
some of the activities or prepare the snacks, something like
Oh, I
that.
love that. That's just like a karate class too. I know that in our the karate when my daughter was little, they had the teens helping out. They were coming back as coaches, right? And teaching. So
Exactly.
same kind of thing. That's great.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's where we got the idea from. There was
Yes.
leaders in
Right.
training and in lifeguarding and in
Yes, and lifeguarding. Yeah.
gymnastics, and we just applied that to yoga.
Oh, I love that. That's
Mhm.
really cool.
It
I
really
love
worked.
I love also you had your structure ahead of time, so you knew exactly you had the levels and it was all organized. You had your lesson plan. So there's a lot to be said with what's going on. Of course, you could be flexible with your planning, but you had your core curriculum. I love that. It makes it appear that you're a legit business. You've got your plans. This isn't just sort of a fly by night. But yeah, I
Yeah,
love that.
and the teens actually got workbooks as well. So each level we created a workbook so they knew what to expect as well. They knew what we
Yeah,
would be talking about and what we'd be learning, and they could
excellent,
take notes. Yeah.
awesome. Anything else? Any other tips that you had in mind?
Uh,
How about some go-to resources, for example? Is there any resources like props or anything that you were using? Because like you said, with the younger children, it's prop central, right? We can have all kinds of things, but for that age group, is there any resources or props that they
I will
resonate
say
with?
one thing that does carry over in my experience from yoga with the little ones to yoga with the teens is the chimes, the tingas.
Oh yeah.
Everybody seems to love those. Um, the restorative yoga, bolsters and blankets, teens love.
Mm.
I use these. They're like affirmation cards. I'm not sure if you can see this brand in
Oh,
particular is
lovely.
called Love Powered, and each card sort of describes what your superpower is, and it's specially designed for teens.
Mm.
And that's a really nice way to just connect everybody's energy too, particularly early on in the session when it's week 1 or 2 and new people are coming and you're seeing new faces. It's a nice way to give everybody an affirmation card and they can share.
Yeah, I love that.
And we did find that when we did our 10-week sessions, maybe for the first class, there may be new faces. So for the second class, sometimes people don't register on time. Sure, you can join, but we did cut off people joining after that because so many teens are, they struggle with anxiety, and we didn't want them to think, oh gosh, every time I go here, there's going to be a new face and a new face.
Right.
Or teens coming in saying, wow, everybody else already knows each other, and I have to walk in 6 or 7
Right.
classes into it. So we
Yeah.
were pretty strict about, just wait till the next session starts when
Right.
there's an
Love
influx of
that.
new places.
Yeah. And just to kind of to finish up, so do you have any stories? We love stories here at Kids Yoga Stories. Do you have a success story of a time when you just felt like a teen really got it, or that you just knew this is the work you should be doing, or something like that? Something success with a
Yeah,
teen.
we actually had a couple of teens go all the way through the 8-level program, and then by the time they were 18, continue into the full 200-hour certification and get their um, get their official 200-hour teacher training certificate. And I remember that the teen had gone to the university to meet with a guidance counselor and to set up their classes. And she mentioned she was a registered 200-hour yoga teacher, and the guidance counselor was blown away and said, everybody should be who's entering. She was going into like community and recreation programming, and they said everybody going to this course should have that.
Amazing.
And watching her being able to hold her own sort of space and energy and contribute and share in a 200-hour program when she was surrounded with older adults, because she
Mm.
had so much yoga knowledge from the team program, was really nice.
Oh,
And
that's
she
amazing.
is teaching now. Yeah.
Yeah. So heartwarming, right? When you feel like you've made a difference,
Yeah.
on a planted a seed, not just for tomorrow, but really for the rest of her life and everyone that she works with, right?
Yeah.
That's incredible. Awesome. So how can we find you online, Claire? How can we learn more about the teen and tween training, and where can we find you?
Absolutely. So ambassadoryoga.com is the best place to go. The initial point of that website is for our 200-hour teacher training that we license out, but we also do license out the complete teen and leadership program. And it's fully customizable. So that program, you get your workbooks, but you get the Word files of these. So you can take off this cover, put on your own yoga studio logo, or if you're a coach, we got called out to soccer fields and football fields all the time to do yoga with the teens before a game. And like, you just learn the yoga and you teach them. So
Yeah.
you can brand it to your school or your studio. Guidance counselors can use it.
Mhm.
And that's
I
really the
love
best
that.
place to find me.
That's excellent. I love it. Thank you so much for taking the time. So excited for you and Kathy and what you're going to be doing with Ambassador Yoga. Thanks so much for your time, my dear. See you
Thank
later.
you.